Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the 21st of April, 2025, the day after Easter. Easter Monday, if you will. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope your week's looking great. I'll tell you, other than the allergies, I don't give California a lot of credit, but we're in like the only time of the year that I don't mind the weather here. Come wintertime, it's just rainy. And, I'm one of those people, it is dark here. I'm one of those people. Well, it's dark here, Beezy, if you pull all the shades and set the studio dark. I'm one of those people. I like the snow. I like the cold. I like the four seasons. California goes from rain to hot to rain to hot. Right now, we're in like that 2 week period. There's no news. We're in that 2 week period where it's beautiful. So it's the only time of the year I don't mind living in California. I have a lot to talk about this weekend. There is a lot of news to talk about, but we're going to start with the biggest news. And I'm just going to give you a little warning right now. Any sort of picking apart of the Catholic Church that I'm going to do tonight, any sort of tearing it up and complaining about it, I do not want that to insult your personal beliefs. I want to be clear about that. The Catholic Church, as I'm going to discuss a little bit, I don't think is adhering to being a Catholic church. I think that it's become this weird woke thing. We'll talk about it. So please, as it goes on, as the show goes on and I start nitpicking at the church, don't think that I'm nitpicking against you or your beliefs. Lost Wanderers in the chat, BZ's in the chat, Mission Ready Men's in the chat, Ricky Robinson's in the chat. If you want to be in the chat, you can do so. Go to YouTube, search SHR Media. We're live right now. You can click live and join the live chat. So first, the big news. Pope Francis, who was born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, was born 1936 in Buenos Aires, died early this morning at age 88. Everyone knows he's had a long illness for the last, I think, 2 months, had double pneumonia. He had, he was a sick elderly man. He was born to Italian immigrant parents in Buenos Aires. He trained as a chemist before he joined the Jesuit order. He was also a bouncer at a club. Isn't it always funny when you look back, like, what you found out about Benedict's history wasn't funny, but it seems like every pope has like a weird or comical job in their background where it's like, oh, he was a priest, he joined the Jesuit provincial in 1973, or the Jesuit order rather, or he started off as an altar boy or whatever, and then it's like, oh yeah, he was also a paratrooper in World War II, and then they just like move on. It's like you always find out some weird thing. The fact that he was a bouncer struck me. I did not know that before. He was elected after Benedict resigned. Benedict was not a great pope in my opinion. I've railed on him in the past. His whole purpose, and this will bring us into the next subject, his whole purpose and his whole ideology was a poor church for the poor. Yeah. He pushed for inclusivity, open roles to women, LGBTQ plus community, and addressed global issues like climate change, immigration, and interfaith dialogue. He established a commission to investigate clergy sexual abuse, which did nothing, by the way. And that's what I'm going to get into in a little bit. And obviously, he died after a long illness earlier this morning. He's going to lay in state for 15 days, and he's also going to be buried. I forget the name of the church. He'll lay in state at St. Peter's Basilica, but he's not being buried on grounds. He's actually being buried off grounds, which isn't a big deal. It's just different. He was just met. The jokes and the memes about JD Vance meeting the Pope just before he died was absolutely hysterical. And Ricky brought some up before on his show, America Off the Rails, right on KLRN. By the way, if you're joining us from the KLRN feed, thank you. Welcome. Thank you to Rick on KLRN, who, despite all the grief I give him, still carries the show for whatever reason. But yeah, the memes from JD Vance meeting the Pope and then him passing away less than 24 hours later. Most popes are buried under the basilica, but he's not going to be. He's going to be buried in Rome at a church cemetery, I believe, is what I heard. I'm sure if somebody wants to dig a little bit, they can pull that up. But yeah, Benedict was a very odd pope. The fact that he retired was odd because I don't remember popes retiring much, but there was a lot of controversy about his background. I always had the feeling that more was going to come out about Benedict if he had not retired, about some of his true history. I never thought Benedict was a good person, and I never thought Benedict was a good pope. I think as we get, and we'll get into it right now. Well, no, because I want to tell you, for the people that don't know and they don't know how the Catholic Church works, after a pope dies or resigns, there's a college of cardinals. They call themselves the Camerlengo. I know there's a better Italian pronunciation for that. I do not have it. And essentially, they all go into a room and vote for the new pope. And there's white smoke as a new pope. I think if it's black smoke, they haven't. Yeah, if I remember right, black smoke means they havenent decided. White smoke means they have. And they'll come up with a new pope. There's a lot of interesting candidates up for pope, and I'm going to tell you about them in a second. You might be saying, Sean, you're a political show. Why is this important? Well, America has a huge Catholic population. As a matter of fact, 22% of the adults in this country identify as Catholic. 12% being white, 8% Hispanic. The U.S. population is roughly 330 million. So that's a decent percentage. And the green smoke. The green smoke indicates the alien is a new pope. Hey, at this point, Lost Wanderer, anything can happen. The orange. The orange smoke means they're burning files from after World War II. But get back to what I was saying. If 22% of the adult population is Catholic, this translates into about 56 million Catholic adults who are old enough to vote. Voting Catholics is a big part of politics in this country. And Catholics are definitely one of those groups who has a tendency to kind of go with the church politically. There I used to joke that Catholics were Shia Christians. I grew up Catholic, as I've said many times before. I'm no longer a practicing Catholic. But very, very, very devout Catholics, sometimes more often than not, will go with the church political. And for a long time, the Catholic Church in this country did a good job of not being overly political until, honestly, until JFK ran. And he was obviously the first Catholic president. And then they started to jump into politics more and more and more and more and more. And now, of course, you have people like Nancy Pelosi who say she's Catholic. Like you go to a Catholic church, it doesn't make you a Catholic. Biden was the same way. You go to a Catholic church, it doesn't make you Catholic. It's how you practice outside that church, right? That's what makes you the religion that you are. Um, it's like going into space for 8 minutes and calling yourself an astronaut. Oh, maybe that's not a good. No, actually, that's a perfect analogy. That is entirely a perfect analogy. Going somewhere once a week and hanging out for an hour and then leaving that church and never acting in all of the ways that you are learning about and say you're going to does not make you that religion. It just means that which is why I say I'm no longer a Catholic. I don't live by the Catholic lifestyle. I got away from it at a young age. Part of the problem, or part of the reason I got away from it, is I saw a lot of the problems in the Catholic Church that I'm hoping a new pope will start to address. So, yeah, that's why I'm talking about the Catholicism on a political show is we have a large Catholic voter base here in America, and they have a tendency to go with the church. And that can sway elections, especially if they're close, like we've seen in the past. So, who's up? Who is up for the next pope? In theory, you don't really know, and there's a lot of secrecy with the Catholic Church. I mean, they might already know, and for all I know, they're going to drag this out. But Jean-Marc Aveline, he's an archbishop from France, made cardinal in 2022. He's like Pope Francis, he's a progressive. Um, they liken him to Pope John Paul. I don't really ever think that Pope John Paul is overly progressive, but that's neither here nor there. Petro Erdo from Budapest, a conservative canon lawyer with a strong intellect. He's advocated for traditional Catholic teachings and opposed Francis on issues like communion for divorced Catholics and immigration. Interesting. Secretary General of the Synod of Bishops, a key Francis ally. His name is Mario Gretsch. Initially conservative, he's become liberal. Where do we see that? It's almost like the Catholic Church is a lot like American politics, where people just kind of go with whatever so this Petro Parolone, the Italian guy, I'm sorry, the Mario Gretsch guy is the Lindsey Graham of the cardinals or the bishops who are in line to be pope. Pietro Parolin, Italy, he's the Secretary of State for the Vatican. He's a diplomat. He's close to Francis. It would be Francis again. A guy named Robert Sarah, a traditionalist who criticized gender ideology and Islamic fundamentalism. Uh, Peter Turkson of Ghana, he's the former head of the I love it when they use Latin words for promoting integral human development. He was vocal on climate change, poverty, and economic justice. He'd be the first black pope. And there's a couple of other maybes down there. So, you know, no sound. Is anyone else having a sound issue? I hope not. No sound on YouTube. I have nobody else to report a sound issue, James. So hopefully you can work that out. So there's a lot of options. There's actually an American whose name is in there too, Joseph Tobin of the United States. The church now has a huge decision to make. And much like any other form of government, they have to choose their leader, and they're at this fork in this road, right? Do they get to this point and choose to just make money and seem relevant? And I don't mean that in a positive way. I say seem relevant because I don't think they are relevant. Francis wanted to be involved in everything: climate change, immigration. He was using, in my opinion, all of these issues to better the Catholic Church and not people's belief in God or the Bible. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I separate the 2. I look at him like a politician, right? He's not really teaching the gospel. I mean, he does his masses, he does his presentations, whatever, but he is, for lack of a better term, the president of the Vatican. The Vatican's its own country, by the way. I mean, they're worth billions and billions of dollars. They have what is alleged to be trillions of dollars in just art, statues, and other historical items. The Catholic Church is not even a third world country. They're more like a second world country. I mean, they're very advanced and everything. I just mean financially. So when I tell you that they're either trying to benefit the Vatican, or are they trying to better Catholicism? And they're at that fork in the road. I think that Francis was trying to benefit the Vatican, trying to get more money in the coffers, more people to show up. That means that there's going to be more people donating, more people visiting, yada, yada, yada. That puts the words, that puts the money in the pockets of the church. Despite the, I want it to be a poor church for the poor, the Vatican is anything but poor. The Catholic Church is anything but poor. When you are able to travel as a head of state with your own protective details, when you are able to have walls around your city, like BZ was just talking about, to keep the immigrants out, even though you want to take everybody to have everybody else take them in. You know, you want to act like a country, you get treated like a country. That's really my point. And they wanted to act like a country. And by the way, one of the other issues I have with the Catholic Church is it's very socialist. It is a very socialist ideology in a lot of ways because the upper echelon at the Vatican live like kings. I mean, they just do. The regular workers, if you will, the priests and the nuns who are in your local churches, do not live like kings. They live very humbly, like you're supposed to. If you look at the Vatican, do you think that they're living humbly in the Vatican? No. The Vatican also, and this was something Francis said he was going to address and did not, was the sexual abuse scandals. There was a couple little comments about it. But one of the things that I've always said, and part of the reason why I left the church at a very young age, growing up in Boston, I've told this story before, Boston, New York, and other places, there was a massive, massive sex abuse scandal with priests and young boys. And the Catholic Church, instead of just turning the priests over to justice like they should have, hid a lot of it, a ton of it. And as much as they've exposed, that much more was hidden. And what they would do is when they'd get a complaint, they would start moving priests around and they would move them to other countries, non extradition countries, including the Vatican, and hide them. And they've never made good to the best of their ability for that. No pope has come since, and that includes John Paul, who I've spoken very highly of. And to me, that is the biggest thing that the Catholic Church needs to address before anybody can take them seriously. And you might think that that is extreme. But let's be honest. You had the people who are supposed to be trusted, the priests, preying on the innocent and then using their position within the church as a threat to keep those kids quiet. And then when the cat was out of the bag, the church, i.e., the Catholic government, moved those people so they didn't get prosecuted. A few of them did, but not nearly enough and not nearly as many as were monsters. I had friends who were victims of this. So yeah, I take it personally, and you all should, because those young males who were going to church to volunteer their time to be closer to God, to be closer to the church, and they were put in the hands of these people who were supposed to be trusted, and they were scarred and abused, and their lives were forever changed and not for the best. And it's one of those horrific scars in the Catholic Church that nobody has fixed yet. Look, we talk about the Vatican as a government versus the church. In this country, we've done a really good job of admitting our faults and our mistakes, and we've tried to make things better, not give everything away, but make things right so everybody is and truly equal. We've done everything we can that's reasonable to make up for the sins of the past. The Catholic Church has not done that. The Catholic Church has never answered why they were helping Nazis escape Europe and go to Argentina. They've never even really addressed it. How can you have faith and belief in an organization that's supposed to be a religious organization who would hide such things? The Catholic Church is a crony government, excusing the sins of their members, their leaders, for the betterment of the church, or as I say, the government. So when I say there's a road that they're at right now, do they want to continue to be the government Vatican and the government Catholic Church, or do they want to be the religious government or the religious Vatican and the religious Catholic Church? And I think it's so important because I know a lot of Catholics that have walked away over the years. More recently, um, the Irish the Irish community in Boston, there was I'll tell you, growing up, there were Catholic church everywhere. Big E knows this. He grew up in the same area I did. There were Catholic churches everywhere, and every Catholic church was a sight to behold. Every Catholic church was huge for the most part. There's a couple of the older ones that were smaller, but for the most part, they all had a rectory where the priests and the nuns lived. They all had a, a school attached to it, yada yada yada. It was everywhere. It permeated. And not I don't mean that in a bad way, but people I mean, you knew people from church, right? You grow up with people from church. Everybody went to church. You knew where everybody went. The CYO would play against this CYO basketball team or that CYO's baseball team or that CYO softball team. They were so rooted in the Boston area. And I know so many people that grew up as staunch, devout Catholics that have since walked away. And they've walked away because of the choices of the Vatican. Essentially, if they don't have to live to the same standard that we're getting told to live in when we're hearing mass, sometimes in Latin, if they're not going to live up to that standard, if they're not going to live up to what the Bible's taught, if they're not going to live up to who they're supposed to be, then why am I going to give them money and show up? And they've walked away. The Immaculate Conception Church in Malden, Massachusetts, which is where I grew up going to church, used to be a huge, beautiful church. It's still there. They used to have, and I know they still have the school, but they used to have a giant secondary building. They used to have a full rectory. They had, this tells you how long I haven't been Catholic. What's the school where the nuns go? Um, oh gosh, it'll come to me later. Everyone's yelling at me right now. That's fine. It wasn't the rectory. There's oh gosh, monastery. No, that's for the priests. I'll get there anyways. And now they've had to sell off all of their satellite properties. I think they still have the school. I'm not sure, but they've sold everything else off because they're not getting money like they used to. People aren't going like they used to. They're not donating like they used to. And I know they'll blame the economy, but I'll tell you right now, in all economies, Most churches still did okay. Most people donated what little they had to the church because the church was a trusted place for people to go, and they always believed if they were in trouble, they could go to the church and get food and get shelter and whatever. And the Catholics have the Vatican have ruined that for Catholics, and they ruined it for people like me, right? If you followed my show through, Sack Kids and everything, I've decided later in life that my religion is gonna be inside. I'm not talking about it. I don't express it. I don't discuss it. I think it's individual for everybody, and for me, it's very individual. But the reason I left the Catholic Church is at 17, I watched it be the gigantic hypocrisy that it is today. And it started back then. And now they're getting involved in immigration. Instead of just showing up, look, if you say, hey, we're not making a stance on whether immigration is right or wrong, but we're going to donate food and clothing to the immigrants until you guys figure out what you're going to do with taking care of. Okay, that's fine. That's a very Catholic Church thing to do. That's what when you picture the Catholic Church taking action, that's what they would that's what you picture them doing, right? All right, I don't, that politically it's not our fight. We just want to make sure that these people have food and shelter because that is what Jesus would want. That is what God would want. Great. But they're not. They're telling people you have to take them in. They're becoming political. They're not taking any. As BZ pointed out earlier, they're not taking in any. You don't see the shelters getting set up inside the Vatican. You don't see a whole bunch of Muslim immigrants strolling around the Vatican, right? Because it is do as I say, not as I do. They've become a government, and it's what is going to ruin the Catholic Church if they do not change direction. Now, look, I also always had issues with all of a sudden it's like, hey, and again, I'm not expressing my beliefs right now. I'm just telling you what the Catholic Church used to be and what it is now and what all of a sudden the change was. Because I don't think the Bible has been rewritten in the last 5 years. And maybe I'm wrong. Correct me in the chat room if I'm wrong. I mean, there's a million people in the chat, Lost Wanderer, Biff, Mission Ready Men, Ricky's in there. I saw somebody else in there. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Bible get rewritten in the last 5 years? Or is it, and if not, then how is it suddenly okay for them to be pro LGBTQ plus? Okay for priests to get married, yada, yada, yada. What changed other than the political will of the Vatican and what suits them best? What's going to put more money in their pockets? You know, they called Pope John a progressive. I think Pope John was acting out of a place of legitimate. God would want us to be friends with the Jews because he was a Jew early on. He might, that might be a thing, right? But all of a sudden, to turn around and say, yeah, by the way, we're cool with the LGBTQ community. Which, by the way, I don't care. I'm a libertarian with about 80% of that stuff. I don't care, but the church used to. If you start bending your rules or your beliefs or your convictions to be popular, you are not a religious institution. You are, as I've said, a government. You're going to what is with the vote versus what the book that you're supposed to teach from says. And you're a giant hypocrite, gigantic hypocrite. And it also puts you in a bad way because, as we've seen with a lot of this woke agenda that is dying faster, well, I might get struck by lightning if I make that joke, that is dying extremely fast. The woke ideology that's dying like it just had a visit with JD Vance. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have, but I did. Um, do you want your horse hitched up to that wagon forever? Because how do you go back from it? How do you go back and say, no, just kidding. We're going to go back to what the Bible says? How do you do that and maintain any sort of convictions or any sort of beliefs? How do you do that and say it's godly? Oh, yeah, well, we were wrong. Well, what made you change it from the first place? I forget the name of the comedian. There was a comedian years ago when they were talking about, it might have been George Carlin, but we were talking about changing the church. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did God call up and say, by the way, we're changing this? Or are we now just interpreting it in an entirely new way because it's popular? And if that's so, that's a problem. And yes, that is a gigantic problem because you're no longer serving, as the Lost Wanderer said, higher power. You were serving the bank account, which is what I think they've only been serving for the last 15, 20 years. It's frightening to think that one of the largest religious institutions in this world is exactly what we hate in this country. It's a majority of us hate everything that they've been doing. Oh, look at that. I gotta take a break. I told you this segment was gonna eat up a lot of time, and I'm not even done yet. When we come back, yeah, it's gonna be more Pope and the church stuff, and I'm gonna keep railing, and God, who knows? I may end up in a book 20 years from now. Be right back.
Freedom. One nation in all of human history was built on that bedrock. Ours. A republic of the people, by the people, and for the people. Self-government requires freedom, just as freedom requires an individual willingness to self-govern. Freedom has made America exceptional, but it can only last as long as you and I seek the good, as expressed by the laws of nature and nature's God. It can only last if you and I choose to act as people of character. Forging character has been the pursuit of Hillsdale College since 1844.
Ever dream of escaping the daily grind? At Escapist Travel and Tours, we make those dreams your reality. From breathtaking adventures to cultural immersions, we offer escapes tailored just for you. Let us take you to places where every moment feels like a new chapter in your life's adventure. Visit www.escapist.travel or call us today at 1-855-885-81776. Your escape awaits.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. I got to get caught up on some of these chats because they come in during the break and they're awesome. They're worshiping money rather than God. Mission ready men. I can't help but agree with you. I can't help but agree with you. And look, I mean, the Catholic Church has always been weird. I mean, how they spread Catholicism back in the day was not exactly nicely. Um, Nobody expects a Spanish Inquisition, and a lot of people got it. But they at least, however you want to look at it, they were pushing and spreading what they believe to be the word of God and the Bible and all of that. So at least their heart was in the right place. And their swords, apparently, because it worked in a lot of countries. Lost Wanderer. When Hurricane Irene destroyed my life, my property, my everything at the time, it was Samaritan's Purse and a group of carpenters of the magic underwear that helped me rebuild. Carpenters of the magic underwear, I assume, was Latter-day Saints. And they showed me faith more than I've seen in far from many leaders. Yeah. And that's usually the case, you know. And I joke about the Latter-day Saints because no, and look, I'm one of those big believers. Lost Wonder is that everybody is ripe for a joke every once in a while. Respond to mission ready men. I think it's in their minds. Siding with the subversive is siding somehow with all of the edge downtrodden. Satan may as well be been wearing the last pope's hat, whom I term socialist popey. Yeah, I mean, the social the church, as I said earlier, has become very socialist. And actually, you could argue that if they went back to the Crusades or the Inquisition, then it was also, communisty. But that's neither here nor there. But it's no longer about religion. And to me, that's one of those things that's when you've lost your way. Look, and I've said this before, when you see these preachers in these mega churches who are driving around in Ferraris and getting on private jets, I ain't okay with that either. Um, I and maybe I'm old school, but I grew up, that the people who working in the church serve the church and serve the community, and that was their calling. It was not um to get rich. As a matter of fact, it was usually the opposite. As I talked about earlier, usually if you enter service in the church and you were a pastor or a priest in the Catholics or a nun, minister, whatever, you lived a very humble life because the church provided you usually food, shelter, and then it was your job to spread the word of God, and you lived a humble life, but you did so proudly and willingly because you were serving God, right? That's what it was supposed to be. And now you see the Catholic Church. I mean, it's not like the Catholic Church is newly rich. I don't want anyone to confuse what I know to be facts. No, the Catholic Church has been ridiculously rich for a long time. You ever wondered, and this will go back to them helping the Nazis after World War II. You wondered why the Nazis stayed away from the Catholic Church and the Italians for the most part, right? Which it's right there. Um, it makes you wonder what deals were brokered. And I have an issue with that too. There's so many, and it's sad. It's sad to me because legitimately, I probably would have walked away the Catholic Church one way or the other, even if these scandals weren't there. It just wasn't for me. But I remember when you'd see a priest or a nun in public, it was like seeing a rock star when you were young. You were happy to see them. They were very happy to see you. They very, even the tougher priests, and we had a couple of tough priests growing up. I mean, there was a couple of priests that would kick your ass if they saw you stepping out of line in public, and then they would bring you to your parents, and your parents would kick your ass. Father Bulldog comes to mind. And then you had some priests that were, just normal guys outside of the collar, but in the collar, they lived up to um, what they were supposed to do and what they allegedly dedicated their life to. So it's sad to me, even being away from the Catholic Church, it's sad to me to see what it's become. And I don't think they have it in them right now to change course. I think they need to change course. I don't think they're out ahead of it. Look, until they prove otherwise, I'm going to say that they're going to run it like a socialist government, like they have been. And I don't foresee them changing direction with this next pope. And what they're going to end up doing is ending up further into obscurity with some progressive new age pope because it makes them more money. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, not that I'm ever going to go back to the Catholic Church, but for the friends of mine who are Catholic and conservatives, I hope, and they're conservatives because of their Catholic belief more than anything else. I hope I'm wrong for their sake, because that's not what it's supposed to be. But I don't think I am. A couple other stories to talk to because we only got 20 minutes left. And I actually went longer than that than I figured I would. Senator Van Hollen on Sunday. This story, I will tell you, this story with this MS-13 POS, who, by the way, one of the things I think people forget, MS-13 was designated a terrorist organization. So all of these Democrats that are going down there trying to get him back, isn't that supporting terrorism? Giving comfort and aid to the enemy? Don't we have like a rule against that? It's like a law or at least a guideline. The best part about this, though, and I want you to really, this is something that I hope, I really hope you're proud to know that you did this because it was your taxpayer dollars that paid for Van Hollen's trip.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared
So
on a
taxpayer
bipartisan
dollars.
basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially
I'm letting it play
cleared,
twice on purpose.
congressional trip, cleared
So
on a
taxpayer
bipartisan
dollars.
basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Who did?
Ladies and gentlemen, we paid for that. Taxpayer dollars. By the way, there was another young lady, and I apologize for not having her name ready, who an arrest was just made in her murder, and it was 2 illegal immigrants as well. So not only is Van Hollen going down there, but you have Representative Maxine Dexter says she will not leave El Salvador until Garcia returns to the United States. That's perfect. We can start filling her seat now because he ain't coming home anytime too soon. You know what I'm saying? And then you have this genius who really,
advocating for
I'll tell you, he is a barometer for the Democrats. If this guy is for something, it may be time to get away from it. Oh, wrong one. There it is.
Hey, it's Congressman Garcia. I am here in El Salvador. I'm with a group of House Democrats advocating for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and, of course, checking in on so many folks who have been sent here without due process. The Supreme Court has ordered unanimously that Kilmar Garcia should come back home to the United States.
Nope.
We also know that he was sent here wrongfully. The Trump administration admitted that. We have met now with the U.S. Embassy here.
The Trump administration did not admit that. Somebody show me the clip of the Trump administration said they sent him wrongly. Please. Please. It blows my mind. They're not even waiting a couple months to lie. Like, you remember the Democrats used to do that? They'd wait for something to happen, and then a couple months later, they would start lying about it and hope that you wouldn't do the research. Just last week, I had what's his name from the chief of staff lay out the press and explain exactly why this was legal and exactly how exactly how it can aligned with the Supreme Court. But he's gonna lie. Oh, it's complete blah blah. He is a validated. By the way, where's the sheriff? I have the sheriff from the county that he was arrested in here somewhere. Let's see. I had it. Did it go bye-bye? I might have went bye-bye. Who said that he validated him? He was validated. Look, MS-13 is designated as a terrorist organization. Fact. Stephen Miller. Thank you, BZ. I couldn't pull out Stephen Miller. I wanted to say Dennis Miller, but I knew that was wrong. However, he would be a great press secretary. Funny. They're down there advocating for the return of a validated member of a terrorist organization. This would be like if they went to Afghanistan and brought back members of the Taliban that we deported. Because remember, we've sent a whole bunch of Taliban members back. Imagine that if we were like bringing them back all of a sudden. This is the most unbelievable. And what kills me is I really thought after Van Hollen, and maybe this is just because I expect too much still. I don't assume the level of idiocy that they're going to stoop to. I really did assume after Van Hollen went down there and all these documents came out, official court documents, Department of Justice documents, police documents saying, hey, no, this guy, look at his tattoos. You look at everything. This dude is MS-13 through and through, no questions asked. I thought Van Hollen would run with his tail between his legs. But no, they quadrupled down on a validated member of a terror organization. Let me ask you this straight up. Do you think that these people have the best interest of America in mind? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Exactly. When your enemies destroy, I want to know who is doing the PR for them that keeps saying, no, this trip is a good idea. Let's send more people down. Let's send more canaries into that coal mine because the first one didn't come out in great shape. So let's just keep sending them more. Unfreaking believable. See, this is how you're supposed to lie like a Democrat. Here's Liz Warren. This is her lying. But she waits till it's a couple of months old so she can hope that you not do the research. Fortunately, we did.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline.
You'll notice that pause from Pocahontas. Did you see that pause? Did he have the same mental acuity level as you? Shit, I gotta say this. Oh, this is so great. This is wonderful. Oh God, I love this.
And I hadn't at that
Did you
point.
see his face? Look at
And I hadn't
look at the
and I hadn't
face.
at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that.
This is the chance. And I don't know this podcaster's name. I apologize. It didn't come with this clip that I found, so I'm not taking credit for this or anything like that. It's all his. He's giving her the opportunity to right a wrong for the future of Democrats. He's handing it to her on a platter. Here's your chance to lie outright like you've been doing right along, but now you can make it fuzzier. You can say, no, you know what? It must have just been I met with him during good days or something like that. But she doubled down.
The thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Crushed it. And hats off to that interviewer for keeping it on her. Oh, Harry Reid lied about Mitt Romney. Oh, I know they all lied, right? Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember, BZ, when Harry Reid outright lied and later laughed about it in an interview and said, well, that's just part of doing politics, right? It was acceptable because the end justified their means. And it did that year because Obama won. But, man, I do. It's not often that you see a liberal broadcaster who will hold the feet to the fire of the Dems, and that I believe that person's a liberal broadcaster, or Liz wouldn't be there. She doesn't do contentious. She'll go on Fox because they'll treat her with kids' gloves on a certain level, but all those little podcasts, like if she came on this podcast, I would absolutely, she'd never do it because I would rip her apart, and she knows it. Yeah, and he kept her on point, and he called her out on the, well, I saw him on his feet. Like, oh, really? So sentences and standing, that qualifies? I give him a lot of credit for that. I absolutely do. I saw this just before I went on the air, and if you don't follow Greg 166-769-35420. This is one of those follows that's just because it's damn funny and nothing else. I'm just thankful the Pope would live long enough to see Katy Perry land on the moon. All of his tweets are like that. All of his posts are like that. It's just comedy and goofy, and he's worth a follow, man. Let's see. This story was bizarre. New Mexico judge suddenly resigns after ICE arrests an alleged Trinidad Aragawa gang member in his home. Law enforcement executed a search warrant on magistrate judge Joel Cano's home before arresting 23-year-old Christian Ortega Lopez, who had ties to Trinidad Aragawa. According to Breitbart, authorities recovered photos of Ortega Lopez's phone of decapitated and mutilated bodies. He illegally entered the country under Biden through Eagle Pass, Texas. He was released, of course he was, from the detention facility just days after entering the country due to overcrowding. He soon met with the judge's wife, Nancy, and started doing construction work illegally. I don't know what Nancy does. They make this all about the judge, but clearly Nancy was some sort of... But then there's like photos of him hanging out with them at... it's just bizarre, man. I'll play this video. It's only like 23 seconds. You don't hate leftists enough. I'm telling you, man. Oh, add to stream, not remove, dumbass. Me being. That's him handing that AR. That's the judge.
Put it on.
The illegal was the one handing the rifle around. This photo. I mean, I hate to say it. Fortunately, and I mean this as a human being, not as a conservative, fortunately, this did not end in the demise of the judge and his wife. But let's be honest. If this guy is who they say he is, he has all those pictures on his phone. He's a Trinidad Aragawa member. I wish they would rename that gang because I screw it up every single time. This could have ended horribly for them. They could have been dead in the backyard and him living in the house for a couple months. I mean, we've heard the stories, especially with members of that gang, just how horrific they are, right? These liberals are so dumb and naive, and so they've drank so much Kool-Aid that they think that they're the white saviors and that nothing bad can happen to them. These people, these gang members, these MS-13, Trenday, all these South American gang members, never mind all the other horrible people that have come over the border from other countries, aren't here because they're good people per se. Are every one of them are good people? No, I mean, yes. You know what I mean? I'll throw that out. Not everybody's a bad person that came across the border. I understand that. However, are we finding out that a majority, or 10 to 15%, which of 10 million is what, 1.5 million, were in fact gang members and horrible people and did prison and part of gangs, yada, yada, yada. Right? And they're bringing him in the house. She got him a job. She knew he was illegal and got him a job in construction, is what it sounds like to me. So first of all, that construction company needs to be investigated because that is illegal to employ illegal immigrants. But then he's handing him around a rifle, which, by the way, isn't it always amazing how many liberals who, I bet you that judge hates Second Amendment for other people, just not him. And he had a kitted out AR. That was a nice AR. It was kitted out. And he's letting the illegal gang member hold. Yeah, there wasn't a magazine in it. It probably was empty. But still, you've now told this kid that you don't know that has gang tats all over his face. You could see him. And you're a judge. You, at this point, if you've been on the bench for more than a year, you know what gang tattoos are because you see it in evidence all the time. Not only did he let him hold that weapon, which I'm pretty sure is some sort of violation of law, but what he told that kid is, hey, I have rifles in the house. Come get them if you want them. You just have to take them. not intentionally saying that, but that's what he accidentally did say. And this tells you like that the amount of white saviorism on the left is unbelievable. It'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to me. I mean, I hate to say it. The only time you're going to see the left is one of those statements I know it's going to get misconstrued, and I'll get in trouble for it. The only time you're going to see leftist change on immigration is if it happens to one of them. If the bad thing happens to one of them, and I do not want the bad thing to happen to anybody. I want that to be clear. But that seems to be the only way they learn. And I'll tell you right now, I don't even know if they would learn that lesson this time now. 10 years ago, I would say 100%. Now, I don't think they would learn it. I really think that they would just keep marching along and be like, oh, Joe's down. Too bad. Let's keep going. We're going to ruin this country all together now. And it's, I just, every hair on my neck is standing up when I saw that video and I saw him hand the rifle to, I don't know who the other woman was who was speaking Spanish. But I was like, holy shit, Your Honor, the man who's supposed to live by the law because he enforces the law and holds people accountable. You're just going to do that, huh? That's the way. And then when you show up on the news, how did it happen? He was just a construction worker. He was a New Mexican resident who was a construction worker. That's what they would put on the news. He was angry. It was a workplace violence thing. That's how they would phrase that. Because the wife who got him the job clearly knows somebody. It's a workplace violence thing. Trump put this out on social media. It's a great post. It has to do with all the judicial shitheads that we have in this country. I'm doing what I was elected to do, remove criminals from our country, but the courts don't seem to want me to do that. Trump was, as I said last week, and I've said in other shows, and it's not just me. I know that. Immigration was one of the biggest issues this past election. My team is fantastic and doing an incredible job. However, they are being stymied at every turn by even the U.S. Supreme Court, which I have such great respect for, but which seemingly doesn't want me to send violent criminals back to Venezuela or the country or other countries for that matter. People that came here illegally. The courts are intimidated by the radical left who are playing the ref. That was in quotes. Great Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito correctly wants to dissolve the pause on deportations. He is right on this. If we don't get these criminals out of our country, we're not going to have a country any longer. We cannot give everyone a trial because to do so would take, without exaggeration, 200 years. Yes, the immigration courts are backed up unbelievably and have been for a long time. We would need hundreds of thousands of trials for the hundreds of thousands of illegals we are sending out of the country. Such a thing is not possible to do. What a ridiculous situation we're in. Make America great again. Look, this is one of those times that we need Congress to have a set of balls and say, look, if you crossed in illegally during the Biden administration, pass a law right now. We believe, and if Trump is using the act from, 1898. I always forget which year it was. Under that act, you're gone because the border was open. The previous administration did nothing but risk American sovereignty and American lives by not enforcing the border and encouraging it. And as we found out, give money to NGOs who were busing, flying, and bringing these people in from other countries. It was an invasion. It was absolutely an invasion. And put legislation in right now between the 4 years. Just do the 4 years that Biden was in office, and then you just boom, rubber stamp it, House, Senate, then it's done, game over. He's 100% right. Look, Rick said this before, and others have as well, but Rick said on his show earlier, Trump is the right president at this time, but he only has a couple years. And we have a lot to get done. And if we, like Trump said in his post on Truth Social, if we turn around and gave everybody a trial. It would take 200 years, and our country would be destroyed before that. And then what happens when people don't show up for the trials, which happens all the time, or they're asked for a continuance? That's if the trial is done without any sort of legal interruption, which when have you seen any trial go without legal interruptions? Folks, that's it for me. I'll be back Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you to our good friends over at KLRN for the simulcast and for being our amazing friends. Tuesday, Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 on noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men right here on SHR Media. Tuesday, Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. on the East Coast. You have BZ's Berserk, Bobcat Saloon. Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have the Reverb Common Sense. Make sure you check out our good friends at KLRN. Please do me a favor. If you like the show, like and subscribe. If you didn't like the show, like the episode, subscribe to the channel, and then come back and harass me all you want. My name is Sean. I will see you Wednesday evening. I hope you have a great rest of your night.